Good day, everybody, and welcome to a modified version of High Heat. Hopefully everybody out there is safe, abiding what the authorities are telling us to do on this March day, last day of the month here in 2020. The calendar, of course, turning slowly right now, and hopefully we'll get some sports, and baseball specifically. Who knows when? Let's stay out of the forecasting business, but hopefully we'll get some sort of season here, whether it might be, who knows when it shall start. Now, when they do, and Moses Messina, and of course our good buddy today is Rich Savino, and we'll do a couple of these segments a week for you, Tuesdays and Thursdays. We'll do a little modified version of High Heat. Okay, let's give you a sort of status report of where we stand. First off, excellent job with the agreement, service time, the amateur draft, and I'm not that wrapped up on the rounds of the amateur draft. We're going to obviously, not to quibble now about service time. The Dodgers, if they don't get Betts to play, they have to live with it. Obviously, the scenario of the $170 million, the association can split up for the next 2 months. They got it done. They couldn't get into a public squabble. Good job on both sides. Now, as far as the season is concerned, if we have one, and I keep our fingers crossed, I think the key word there will be experimentation. This is the year now that the sport do anything they want to make, if they want to put extra playoff teams, they want to do guys on second base and extra innings to move the games along a little quicker, to start off like they do in the World Baseball Classic. They want to go out there and they want to put 7 games in with twilight or day-night doubleheaders. Go ahead. Do anything you want here. Everything goes. Nobody's going to quibble. Everybody's going to be so happy that sports and baseball are back that if the powers that be want to sit there and do some things differently as far as their season is concerned, make it more applicable to the times, all go right ahead. Do anything you want. I'm okay with it. You want to do a play-in system as far as postseason is concerned? You want to go out there and add more teams? You want to, whatever you want to do. It makes no difference. You want to cram some games in? We understand you're going to have to do that. You want to start baseball with an all-star game scenario like they did in '81? I'm okay with it. Do anything that you want to do. And I think anybody who moans and groans, the purists out there, about what the sport comes up with if they get a season going this year is nuts. Let the sport do what they want. They got carte blanche. Anything they want. Player association, the ownership, commissioner's office, nobody's going to say anything. I'm okay with anything they want to do. Now, there's a couple things I don't want, which I'll get to. But as far as the dynamic of a season and postseason and all that, go right ahead. Do anything you have to do and listen, they got a lot of things they can go with. They've had issues with this before. Obviously, they had a split schedule there in '81. They had 72. They didn't play the same amount of games. Let's not get into that. They've got some scenarios that they can learn from and making sure everybody plays the same amount of games and, try to make the schedule somewhat equitable for everyone. What's the word I'm looking for? Equitable for everybody. I'm all set with that. I'm okay with that. They have some parameters to work with. The two things that I would like to see them not do, I don't want neutral site games as far as the postseason is concerned. That's very dicey. Anybody in Houston in November going to go to White Sox Diamondbacks, in a World Series format? I'm not sure they're going to do that. So, that's up against football, up against the calendar that might be huge with sports, a lot going on. I just don't think that neutral sites is the way for baseball to go. I don't think it's the way for any sport to go, especially unless it's the Super Bowl or maybe a semifinals in the NCAA tournament in basketball, of course, in football. I just don't think that you have a guarantee that people are going to go run to a ballpark to go out there and see a situation of two teams that are not of local interest. So I'd be very careful with that. That's number one. Number two, you got to put a date down where you can't go. I would put November 15th. I don't think you can play baseball Thanksgiving. I don't think you can play baseball Christmas. I know that was an idea that was floated, have Game 6 of the World Series on Christmas Day. That's absurd. I think you got to get out of the sport by November 15th. Thanksgiving and beyond that is obviously for football and other sports, the starting of other sports. I just don't think it's for baseball, no matter what the scenario might be, to try to get as many games in as you can and have some sort of season. You can't play on Thanksgiving Day. I think that's important. And the other thing that I would do, and I understand listen, we all know the economic element of it. Everybody wants the more games they play, everybody gets paid and everything else. I understand that, and that's the way the world works. Restaurants are going to stay open longer when they come back too. That's just the way it is. But there has to be some rhythm to a season, and to play 10 games in a space of a week just to squeeze in ball games, that's a little pushing it. So you still have to have a rhythm of a season. If it's 115 games instead of 125, we'll live with it. I mean, and I would like the fan to get a break, and let's put some regular doubleheaders in play. That way you can play the 7-inning variety, and don't go out there and do 9,000 split doubleheaders. You don't know how many fans are going to flock back to the ballpark anyway. With the discretionary income, who knows how much money fans are going to have to spend on ball games and sports. And, of course, the idea of being how many folks are going to flock back to the stadiums to begin with off this virus. So keep that in mind, too. Don't necessarily think – I understand the need to play games. Don't get me wrong. Play past October or September 30th. Play regular season games in October. I certainly understand. Everybody does, too. All-Star game, play that week. I get that. But don't feel like you got to play 9 games in 6 days just to get games in. I think there's a point of you get a little too crazy with that. So we shall see. But the big picture here, of course, is experimentation. This is the year to do it. If you want to see how this new postseason format plays out, why not? Do it now. You want to try a guy at the top of the 10th inning at second base? I'm all for it. Go ahead. Do it. This is the time. So we shall see if we are fortunate. We shall see what baseball comes up with here. They have a carte blanche. They have an empty canvas. Do what they want to do. So, and hopefully we have a season. I think that's the most important thing, and we shall see. Here's the one other thing that I like, too. I do think that both sides, with this good negotiation, with the service time and everything else, maybe that bodes well for accommodation down the road as far as the labor agreement goes. All right, so that's the I'll brush back for you, a modified version. Let's give you a turn back time today because I like it, and you're going to see it, of course, really throughout the day. This game sort of being highlighted. This is Game 7 of the '97 World Series. This is the Marlins-Indians World Series. 38 million people watched this 7th game. It was not a great World Series. Bad weather, cold. Games are not necessarily close. So the first 6 games are sort of not great. And remember, the Marlins were a wild card team, and the Indians were a team that beat the Yankees, and were not the best Indian team. They only won 86 games. The team in '95 was much better, the team that lost to the Braves. This is the '97 version, and the Indians trying to break that long spell of not winning a championship. They played it, of course, at Joe Robbie Stadium, Pro Player Stadium. Now, of course, the same place, Hard Rock Cafe. That was the place they played it. 67,000 showed up on a game-by-game basis. We went to a 7th game. The Marlins had a chance to win it in Game 6. The Indians won. OJ beat Kevin Brown. Then we went to Game 7, and it's a fascinating Game 7 because the Indians really had the lead throughout. Jarrett Wright pitched against our buddy Al Leiter. He had a 2-0 lead through 6. Leiter pitched really well. Wright better. Bonilla hit a huge home run in the bottom of the 6th inning to make the game 2-1. And then we moved into the 9th. Leland managed the Marlins. Mike Hargrove the Indians. And we moved into the 9th inning. And this is where Rob Mann is the unsung hero in this game, because the Indians in the top of the 9th had 1st and 3rd and only 1 out. And I don't believe Nen started the inning. I think they brought Nen in. Obviously, Leland did. Hadn't won a championship yet, Jim, with Pittsburgh. He brought Nen in, and Nen got 2 huge outs. The first one, the most important, was Grissom, who bounced into a forced play with the runner being thrown out at the plate. That kept the game at a 1-run affair, and that was a huge 2 outs that he got in that top of the 9th inning. And then, of course, in the bottom of the 9th, Mesa came in, and eventually, there was an error, there was a hit, there was this, there was that. Counsell came up, hit a hard line drive and a right. Great at bat for Craig, and of course, it turned out to be a sacrifice fly, and the game was tied. And then later on, Renneria got that base hit. I think the error happened in the 11th inning. Renneria got that base hit later on off Nagy to win the title, and the Marlins won the championship. Leland is first, and the Indians had to live for another day. Boodle lost, 2-1 lead, bottom of the 9th. Marlins won the World Series in '97. Hard to believe they won another one, and the Indians still have not won yet. Won a championship yet since '48. So it's a very good turn back time. You're going to see that game today on the network, so you're in good shape there. Again, we do these modified high heat versions a couple times a week. We'll come back with you on Thursday. We'll mix it up. We'll find some topics. We'll do some guests. We'll do some historical scenarios. We'll have some fun. We're in good hands with Moses. We're in good hands with Savino, and, of course, the great network. We'll do what we have to do to keep the baseball moving in this period here, March, April, who knows how, when, before we get a season. So that's where we are on this afternoon, last day of March, and we'll see you on Thursday. Adios.